My sister took credit for my career promotion while I supported her, so I quietly collected proof and turned everything in my favor. I'm a 29-year-old guy, and for as long as I can remember, I've been the dependable one in my family. The one who fixed what was broken, stayed quiet when things got unfair, and held everything together when no one else would. My younger sister, Amanda, was always the golden one. Mom used to say she had potential. That word became a shield for every mistake she made and a reminder that I was just the one who made things work. We grew up with a single mom who worked double shifts at a diner, and I don't blame her for being tired. She gave us everything she could. But her pride in Amanda was different. When Amanda got a B on a test, Mom celebrated like it was a victory. When I quietly worked 2 part-time jobs to keep us afloat, she barely noticed. I told myself it didn't matter. I wasn't doing it for praise. I was doing it for us. When Amanda got into college, I felt this weird mix of pride and pressure. She didn't have the money for tuition, and Mom definitely didn't either. So, I stepped in, took extra shifts, skipped meals, and funneled what I could into her education. I told myself it was temporary, that someday, we'd both be standing on solid ground, and maybe, just maybe, Mom would finally see me too. Amanda was charismatic, the kind of person who could charm her way into anything. She'd call me at midnight to review her essays or practice presentations, and I never said no. I liked seeing her win. I thought her success was our shared story. But looking back now, I realize how naive I was. Because that belief, that we were a team, was the first illusion she'd ever sold me. When I landed my first real corporate job at a major firm, I thought everything was finally turning around, for both of us. I had no idea how wrong I was. After I settled into my new job, I felt proud, like maybe, finally, the sacrifices were paying off. But Amanda didn't seem to see it that way. Instead of finding her own footing, she kept turning to me for every little thing. Hey, can you check my email draft? Does this sound professional? Can you edit my slide deck? It started small, harmless even, and I didn't mind. Helping her was second nature. But somewhere along the way, it stopped being help and started feeling like dependence. She'd call me during my lunch breaks to run through mock interviews or ask me to quickly revise her proposals. I'd be sitting in my office, exhausted from back-to-back meetings, and she'd text, "You're the only one who understands how to make it sound smart." It should have been flattering, but it wasn't. It felt manipulative. Still, I told myself she was just nervous, that she'd grow out of it once she gained confidence. I didn't want to believe my own sister was using me as her safety net. One evening, I helped her polish a major client proposal for her company. She thanked me with a quick, "You're the best, big bro," and hung up. A week later, she posted on LinkedIn about how her hard work and creative thinking impressed her boss. She even used my exact phrasing. I remember staring at the screen, my stomach twisting, wondering if she'd even remember who actually wrote it. I tried bringing it up, gently. "Amanda, maybe next time just give me a heads up if you're using my work?" She laughed. "Oh my God, don't be dramatic. It's just advice, not theft." That word, theft, stuck with me. Because even if she didn't mean to, that's exactly what it was. Still, I brushed it off, convincing myself she didn't mean harm. But when I got nominated for a leadership role at work, I didn't realize that very helping hand I kept offering was about to pull me down instead. Things at work were finally starting to look up. I'd been quietly putting in the hours, taking on extra projects, and my manager had started mentioning my name in meetings with senior executives. When I told Amanda about it, she sounded thrilled, maybe too thrilled. "Wow, that's huge. You've got to show me what kind of presentations you make," she said one night over dinner. I didn't think much of it. I'd always shared everything with her. A week later, she called asking if I could walk her through one of my proposals since her firm was working on a similar concept. I hesitated but eventually caved. I emailed her my old draft with a few details stripped out. She thanked me with a heart emoji and said, "You're saving my life again." 2 days later, my manager pulled me into his office. His expression was tight, unreadable. "Did you share your strategy brief with anyone outside the company?" My chest tightened. "No, why?" He turned his monitor toward me. There, on the screen, was a summary report from another firm, Amanda's firm, and it was almost word for word identical to mine. My throat went dry. I could barely get out. That's my sister's company." His tone stayed cold. "You should know this could be considered a breach of confidentiality." That night, I confronted Amanda. You used my presentation, didn't you? She laughed like I was joking. Relax, you don't own ideas, genius. I just borrowed your structure. You should be flattered. Flattered. That word hit harder than an insult. I'd spent months developing that strategy, late nights, endless revisions, and she'd just lifted it like it was a Pinterest quote. I hung up without another word, my heart pounding in my chest. For the first time, I saw Amanda not as my sister, but as someone dangerous, someone who saw me not as family, but as a resource to drain. And I had no idea that this was only the beginning. After that night, things between us got tense. I stopped answering Amanda's late-night calls, and she noticed immediately. Why are you being distant? She texted. It's like you're punishing me for being successful. I wanted to scream that her success wasn't hers. It was built off my sweat. But instead, I stayed silent. Silence was easier than fighting a battle I already knew I'd lose. A few days later, Mom called me out of nowhere. What did you say to Amanda? Her voice had that edge, the one she saved for when I disappointed her. She's upset. She said you accused her of stealing. I tried to explain, calmly, that Amanda used my work at her company, that it had caused real issues for me. But Mom didn't care. She didn't mean harm, she snapped. You've always been too serious. She just wanted to learn from you. That was the thing about my mom. Amanda's tears always drowned out my truth. I'd grown up watching her rush to comfort my sister while telling me to be the bigger person. And like a fool, I kept being it. Amanda, of course, doubled down. She started posting on social media about toxic people who can't celebrate others' success. And I knew exactly who she was talking about. Friends and relatives began messaging me awkwardly, asking if everything was okay. At work, I couldn't focus. Every time I opened my laptop, I saw her firm's logo burned into my brain. I'd given her access to my trust, and she'd turned it into a weapon. One night, she called again. You're really going to hold a grudge over this? I thought we were family. That word, family, felt like a trap now. Because if this was family, maybe I'd been clinging to the wrong thing all along. And yet, part of me still hoped she'd stop before it went too far. I didn't know she was just getting started. A few months later, my company announced a major innovation award, something that recognized cross-departmental strategy breakthroughs. It was exactly the kind of project I'd been working on before the Amanda fiasco. My manager even hinted that my name was in consideration again, now that things had settled. I felt a flicker of hope. Maybe I could still prove myself. Then, one morning, I saw a LinkedIn post that made my stomach twist. Amanda's company had just won their own Innovation Excellence Award, and the description of her project was word for word the strategy I'd built months ago. Same pitch, same core ideas, even the same phrasing from my drafts. She'd repackaged everything and called it her own. It got worse. The article credited Amanda as the lead strategist and quoted her about developing creative market approaches. My heart sank when I saw my own metaphors in her quotes, phrases I'd coined late at night in my notes app. It was like watching someone wear your skin and call it their identity. That afternoon, my manager came by my desk holding his phone. Hey, is this your sister? He asked, showing me the post. Interesting coincidence, huh? His tone was polite, but his eyes weren't. Within a day, I was called into HR for an informal discussion. They asked whether I'd shared confidential company data. My blood ran cold. I called Amanda immediately after the meeting, shaking. What did you do? I demanded. She started crying instantly. I didn't think it'd be a big deal. They just liked my version better. I swear I didn't mean to cause trouble. Her version of my work. That night, as I sat staring at the HR email summarizing the data review, I realized my sister hadn't just taken credit. She'd turned me into a suspect. And for the first time, I understood. Amanda wasn't just careless. She was calculated. The following week was the worst of my life. HR suspended me, pending investigation, and every colleague I'd once joked with now avoided my gaze. I'd built a spotless record for years, and suddenly, I was the guy who shared proprietary data. The shame was unbearable. I couldn't even look at my reflection without hearing the whispers that I'd betrayed my company, the same way Amanda had betrayed me. Mom called that evening, already furious. Amanda told me everything, she said, her voice trembling with rage. You're dragging your sister's name through the mud just because she's finally doing better than you. Do you hear how pathetic that sounds? I tried to explain that she'd stolen my work, that my job was on the line, but Mom didn't listen. You always think the world's against you, she snapped before hanging up. After that call, I sat in silence, the apartment dim except for my laptop screen. My inbox was filled with cold HR updates and coworkers asking for project files just in case. My hands shook as I typed replies, pretending to still be part of a team I'd probably never return to. I'd spent my whole life being dependable. Now, I was disposable. A few days later, Amanda posted a smiling photo of herself holding the award, captioned, "Hard work always pays off." Hundreds of likes. Dozens of comments calling her an inspiration. My stomach turned as I scrolled through the comments, recognizing phrases she'd once mocked me for writing. That night, I didn't eat, didn't sleep, just sat in the dark replaying everything. Every time I said yes when I should have said no. Every time I let her use family as a weapon. I realized I wasn't just angry anymore. I was done. If they wanted to see me as the villain, fine. Maybe it was time I finally played the part, but my way. Quietly. Carefully. Completely. After the suspension, something in me shifted. The humiliation burned so deep it turned into focus. I stopped defending myself, stopped explaining, stopped begging people to see what really happened. Instead, I started collecting proof, patterns, and history. If Amanda wanted to build her career on my work, then she'd unknowingly left fingerprints all over it. I dug through old emails, chat logs, and shared files. Every version of every document I'd ever helped her with was still there. Timestamped. Watermarked with my original metadata. I found messages where she'd literally said, "Can you polish this so I can submit it tomorrow?" Messages she'd sent hours before those same documents appeared under her name. The deeper I went, the more undeniable it became. She hadn't just borrowed my ideas. She'd stolen years of my work and wrapped them in her fake charm. Then I remembered something crucial, our cloud folder. We'd used it years ago when she was in college, a habit she never broke. Sure enough, there it was, dozens of my drafts, sitting neatly in her drive, untouched but traceable. My proof wasn't just emotional. It was digital, verifiable, and devastating. I spent nights quietly organizing everything into folders, dates, screenshots, call transcripts, and even voice notes where she'd asked me to make it sound smarter. Each file told a story, and together, they built a narrative she couldn't talk her way out of. But this time, I didn't plan to confront her or cry to my mom. That never worked. Amanda thrived on chaos and sympathy. What she couldn't survive was exposure, cold, factual exposure. So, I decided to hit where she least expected. Not with anger, not with words, but with silence backed by evidence. And when I finally made my move, she wouldn't even see it coming. For weeks, I played my role perfectly, quiet, distant, broken. Amanda thought she'd won. She even called a few times pretending to check in, her voice dripping with false sympathy. "You'll bounce back," she said. "You're too smart to let this ruin you." The irony was almost comical. I wasn't ruined. I was preparing. I started with an anonymous email to my company's ethics department. I framed it carefully, phrased like a compliance alert. A data breach may have occurred between two affiliated firms. Supporting documentation attached. I included timestamped files, metadata logs, and screenshots linking Amanda's firm directly to mine. I didn't name myself. I didn't have to. The evidence spoke for itself. Next, I needed her to dig her own grave. So, I reached out under the pretense of reconciliation. "Hey," I texted. "Can we meet for dinner?" I hate how things turned out. She responded within seconds. Of course she did. Narcissists love victory laps. We met at a quiet restaurant, the kind she liked to post about for aesthetics. She arrived late, all smiles and expensive perfume. "So, you're finally ready to move on?" she asked, smirking over her wine glass. I nodded, pretending to swallow my pride. As we talked, I casually steered the conversation toward her big win. I asked how she managed the presentation, and she bragged, like always. "Honestly, I just reused some of your frameworks. You're so good at this stuff, it'd be dumb not to." I laughed softly, recording every word with my phone in my pocket. She kept talking, oblivious. Each sentence was another nail in her coffin. "Everyone borrows ideas," she said. "Besides, you weren't using it anymore." By the time dessert came, I had what I needed, a full, clear confession. And when I walked out of that restaurant, I didn't feel guilt, just clarity. The kind that comes right before you pull the trigger. 2 weeks later, everything started unraveling, just not for me this time. I walked into work expecting another tense, silent day, but the office felt different. People were whispering, glancing at their screens. My manager called me in with an unreadable expression. "Looks like your sister's company is under internal investigation," he said. "Someone sent their board a detailed report of IP theft, identical to what we were dealing with." I forced a confused look, but inside, my heart was pounding. It worked. The ethics department had taken my anonymous submission and shared it with external compliance networks. Amanda's company was now facing questions from both legal and corporate watchdogs. That evening, my phone rang. "Amanda." Her voice was frantic. "Do you know what's happening? They suspended me. They're saying I stole something. You have to tell them it's a misunderstanding." I let the silence stretch before replying. "Funny, that's exactly what I told HR." She broke down crying. The same crocodile tears that once fooled everyone. "Please, you don't get it. They'll fire me. I didn't mean for it to go this far. But I'd learned something over the years." Amanda only cried when she lost control. Her words were a script designed to trigger guilt. But not this time. Meanwhile, my own company's audit concluded. HR called me back in, this time with smiles. "We found where the leak came from. You're completely cleared," they said. "Frankly, your documentation was impressive." My manager even patted my shoulder. "Good work keeping records. You might have saved us from legal hell." When I walked out of that meeting, the weight I'd carried for months finally started to lift. That night, Amanda texted again, begging me to fix it. I read her message once, then deleted it. She wasn't crying for forgiveness. She was crying because, for the first time in her life, the consequences had her name on them. The next morning, Mom called before sunrise. I didn't even have time to say hello before she launched into it. "What did you do to your sister?" she screamed. "She just lost her job. They're threatening to blacklist her in the industry." Her voice cracked like she was mourning a death. I sat there, staring at the ceiling, listening to her defend Amanda with the same blind loyalty that had destroyed any chance of fairness between us. "Mom," I said evenly, "Amanda stole from me. She nearly cost me my job." "You could have handled it privately," she snapped back. "You didn't have to humiliate her." I wanted to ask where this energy was when Amanda humiliated me, but I didn't. There was no point. My mother had always seen me as the strong one, the one who could handle being ignored, insulted, forgotten. Amanda was the fragile flower, the prodigy who just needed guidance. After the call, I sat there in silence. For years, I thought protecting Amanda meant protecting family. But now I realized, protecting her had only ever meant sacrificing myself. And I was done doing that. Later that day, an email circulated around the office. My company's leadership team had cleared me of all wrongdoing and reinstated my full role, with back pay. The final line said, "We appreciate your integrity and diligence during this process." It felt surreal reading those words after months of humiliation. Meanwhile, Amanda posted a vague apology on social media. "Sometimes, we make mistakes that cost us everything. Learning and healing." The comments were filled with sympathy, but the damage was already done. People in our circle started whispering the truth. Some even reached out to me privately, saying they finally understood. And yet, Mom didn't call again. Not to apologize. Not even to ask how I was holding up. I guess silence was her way of choosing sides. A few weeks later, I was called into my manager's office again. But this time, there was no tension in the air. He smiled, motioning for me to sit. "You've handled everything with more professionalism than most people could," he said. "We're promoting you to project lead. Effective immediately." I sat there for a second, trying to process it. The same job that Amanda's actions nearly destroyed was now being handed back to me. But this time, on my own merit. The irony wasn't lost on me. She tried to take credit for my success, and now, her downfall had become the very thing that cemented it. I thanked my manager, walked out of his office, and stood by the window for a moment, watching the city below. For months, I'd been drowning in shame, guilt, and anger, and now, all I felt was stillness. Not triumph, not vengeance, just quiet peace. That evening, Amanda texted again. "I lost everything. Please, can you help me find something new? You've always been the smart one." I read the message twice before replying. "I hope you figure things out, Amanda. But this time without me." She sent a long message about family, forgiveness, and starting over. But forgiveness isn't forgetting, it's freedom. And I wasn't going to chain myself back to her version of family. I requested a transfer to another branch a few weeks later. New office, new city, same company. When I packed my things, I left behind the guilt that had defined so much of my life. As I looked at my new nameplate, Project Lead, I realized something. I hadn't just won. I'd reclaimed every piece of myself that I'd given away in the name of family. And for the first time in my life, that finally felt like enough. 6 months later, my life looked nothing like it used to. The sleepless nights, the self-doubt, the guilt, they'd all faded into something stronger, clarity. My work was thriving. I'd been featured in an industry publication for the same project Amanda once claimed as her own. My name was printed in bold under the title Innovative Leadership in Market Strategy. The recognition wasn't just professional, it was redemption. Meanwhile, Amanda had gone silent. Her LinkedIn was empty, her posts deleted, her once busy feed reduced to a ghost town. Word spread quietly among mutual connections that she was taking time to reflect. Maybe she was. Or maybe she finally learned what it felt like to face consequences without someone shielding her. One evening, Mom called for the first time in months. Her voice was soft, almost fragile. "I didn't know, sweetheart," she said. "I didn't see how bad it was. I just wanted to keep the peace." For a second, I almost broke. Part of me still wanted her approval, the way a child wants warmth from a flame that's burned them too many times. But then I realized I didn't need it anymore. "It's okay, Mom," I said quietly. I stopped needing people to see my worth. I just started showing it. When the call ended, I stared at my reflection in the dark office window. Same person, different story. Amanda had tried to rewrite my narrative with lies and manipulation, but in the end, her downfall became my transformation. I didn't ruin her career. I didn't expose her for revenge. I just stopped protecting the person who never once protected me. And maybe that's what real power looks like. Not shouting, not vengeance, but walking away so silently that your success becomes the only sound they hear. Because sometimes, the best revenge is turning everything in your favor.